بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه تسليما. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala barakatuh. Welcome to our esteemed audience members. I am Zainab Ansari. I'm one of the core faculty at Taysir Seminary, and I'm really excited about tonight's program and our esteemed panelists. So, inshallah, before I introduce our panelists officially, and before we sort of get into our conversation tonight, our post-election analysis, prophetic principles and sacred activism, it's always important that we begin with the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as we look for clarity and reassurance. So it is definitely my honor to ask Sheikh Hassan al-Lachheb to begin our program with the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the Noble Quran. So Sheikh Hassan, if you will kindly grace us with your beautiful recitation, Jazakallah khair.
جزاك الله خير أستاذ زينب. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا كونوا قوامين لله شهداء بالقسط ولا يجرمنكم شنآن قوم على ألا تعدلوا اعدلوا هو أقرب للتقوى واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون. وعد الله الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات لهم مغفرة وأجر عظيم. والذين كفروا وكذبوا بآياتنا أولئك أصحاب الجحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اذكروا نعمة الله عليكم إذ هم قوم أن يبسطوا إليكم أيديهم فكف أيديهم عنكم واتقوا الله وعلى الله فليتوكل المؤمنون. آمنت بالله لا إله إلا الله سيدنا محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم.
Sadaqallahu al-Azim. Thank you so much, Sheikh Hassan. So for our audience members, Sheikh Hassan's beautiful recitation came from chapter 5 of the Quran, Surat al-Ma'idah, beginning with verse 8. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful, O believers, stand firm for Allah and bear true testimony. Do not let the hatred of a people lead you to injustice. Be just, that is closer to righteousness, and be mindful of Allah. Surely Allah is all aware of what you do. Allah has promised those who believe and do good His forgiveness and great reward. As for those who disbelieve and deny our signs, they are the residents of the hellfire. O believers, remember Allah's favor upon you, when a people sought to harm you, but He held their hands back from you. Be mindful of Allah, and in Allah let the believers put their trust, and God ever speaks the truth. Again, thank you so much, Shah Hassan. May Allah Ta'ala reward you. Now, for our audience members, I would like to do introductions to our esteemed panelists. And what I will do, inshallah, is rather than kind of sharing the official bio, I just want to preface my remarks by saying that these are two scholars whom I deeply admire. They are teachers and mentors of mine. I've learned so much from their very valuable perspectives. Shah Hassan al-Lachheb is the president and co-founder of Taysir Seminary, and Shah Hassan is beloved to so many students here in Knoxville, Tennessee, as well as all around the United States of America. Shah Hassan obtained his doctorate from the University of Indiana Bloomington in religious studies, and Shah Hassan's emphasis was on the religiosity and spirituality of Muslims in the Maghrib and Al-Andalus. You know, Shah Hassan's research focused on the practice of writing letters to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and I hope he publishes that research soon, inshallah. But for anyone who's ever taken lessons with Shah Hassan, that you know that his love for the Prophet, peace be upon him, shines through in everything that he does, and especially the annual Shama'il, where he teaches from the beautiful collection of hadiths from Imam Tirmidhi about the life of our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Shah Hassan brings a wealth of experience, whether it is from the classroom, his khutbahs, his lectures, his research, his travels, and all of the students that he has mentored again all over the United States. We're grateful to have Shah Hassan here with us tonight. And thank you so much, Shah Hassan, for taking time out of your very busy schedule. I am also honored to introduce to our audience Imam Dawud Walid. So Imam Dawud Walid is someone that, alhamdulillah, I've had the opportunity to interact and to learn from him. And again, kind of going outside of the official bio, one of the aspects of Imam Dawud's work and his da'wah that I really appreciate is how Imam Dawud Walid has been able to bring together multiple strands of activism and knowledge that Imam Dawud, I think, exemplifies how it's possible to bring da'wah together with sacred activism and to bring Islamic studies together with that commitment to social and racial justice. Imam Dawud Walid is currently the executive director of the Michigan chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations, or CARE, and a member of the Imams Council of Michigan. Imam Dawud has studied under many scholars of the traditional Islamic sciences, and he's also an acclaimed author. So I'm really happy to mention Imam Dawud's books. So make sure that you go and look them up. In particular, Sacred Activism is a book that I myself have read. I've benefited from it. And again, what Imam Dawud has brought together in this book are the foundations of what a prophetic methodology of activism or tajdeed really looks like. So there is, again, the book Towards Sacred Activism by Imam Dawud Walid, as well as meditations on Islam and Blackness. There is also a book that I think is really important for parents, for educators, and that is Futuwa, Raising Males into Sacred Manhood. And last but not least, Imam Dawud also has a book that is forthcoming on the Islamic metaphysics of racism, and inshallah that will be published soon. So in addition to Imam Dawud's work in the public sphere, his advocacy, his leadership through CARE, the books that he's authored, Imam Dawud is also a beloved and respected teacher of the Islamic sciences. So I emphasize these details for our audience because we just want you to know that there is a wealth of expertise and wisdom that both of our panelists will bring, and we are really excited to have this conversation tonight. So Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Welcome, Shah Hassan. Welcome, Imam Dawud. Inshallah, we are going to go ahead and get started. So, first things first, the election. That's why we're all here tonight. So, very quickly, I just want to sort of run these facts by our audience because these are the results that we are looking at. 312 electoral votes went to Donald Trump and only 226 to Kamala Harris. So this is really a political comeback for Donald J. Trump. He won in all of the swing states. The Democrats lost all of those swing states. So we look like, I think it looks to me at least that we are headed towards what appears to be a Republican supermajority. He also received a majority of the popular vote. And compared to the 2020 election, we're really kind of seeing a bit of a shift, I think, in the electorate. So I want to start off tonight, inshallah, and I'm going to direct my question, inshallah, first to Imam Dawud. So Imam Dawud, were you surprised when you saw those election results?
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا دائما أبدا. Before I answer, let me say to Sheikh Hassan and Ustad Zainab, I'm very honored to be on this platform and take your seminary and the wonderful work and the khidmah that you're doing on behalf of the Muslim community. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect you and all of the Taysir seminary staff, the support staff, and the instructors, and also in your summer programs. May Allah bless those. And I actually have one of my children, not this summer, but the summer before, did the summer program in Istanbul, signed up through Taysir. So my family has benefited from the work of Taysir. So I want to say that. In regards to the election, um, I didn't expect it to be a rout. Like I did not expect President or former President Donald Trump to win the electoral vote and the popular vote with such a large margin. I thought that'd be a little closer, but that was not the case. Um, in my area, Metro Detroit, which is probably the most dense Muslim community in America, we have about 300,000 Muslims in a very small area. uh, Dearborn and Dearborn Heights actually went to Donald J. Trump. So that was kind of like anomalies where those Muslim dominated areas actually voted for Trump and did not vote for Dr. Jill Stein, whereas, CARE's exit polls say that the majority of Michigan Muslims voted for Dr. Stein, and then nationwide, the majority as well, with Donald Trump getting more votes amongst Muslims. Uh, and by the exit polls in the swing states, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Wisconsin. So we were surprised about that, but there's a lot of disenchantment in our country right now. There's a lot of identity politics. People in the in our society had different reasons for not voting for Kamala Harris. In part, I think she just was a bad candidate. To be honest with you, Hillary Clinton got way more votes than her when she ran against Donald Trump and won the popular vote, even when Donald Trump won the electoral college vote. So I think that's one issue. The economy, the immigration issue at the border, the fentanyl crisis, and then also the issues relating to transgenderism. There was many issues. I mean, for us, obviously, it was one of the top things on our minds as the ongoing genocide taking place in Gaza and the crimes taking place in the West Bank, as well as the human rights violation and even saying terrorism that's taken place against the Lebanese people. Those are kind of like foremost in a lot of our community members' minds, which pushed Muslims away from the Democratic Party. But those are some of my initial thoughts.
So thank you, Imam Dawood. And hopefully I can kind of circle back to the Muslim vote in Michigan going for Trump. Very interesting. But I want to go to Shah Hassan. So Shah Hassan, same question that I posed to Imam Dawood. Were you surprised when you saw those results?
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala Muhammad rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi taslima. I extend my deep gratitude to Ustad Zainab for this beautiful program. I extend my deepest gratitude and recognition to Imam Walid, Jazakumullah kulla khair, for responding to the invite, but also for all what you do for all of us on behalf of the Muslim community. May Allah Ta'ala increase you in it and increase you in barakah and khair. Allahumma ameen, Allahumma ameen, Allahumma ameen. No, Citizen, I was not surprised by the results, no whatsoever. Again, I was intrigued before the results. I was intrigued on how Allah Ta'ala will manifest Himself regarding this this issue? How is Allah Ta'ala when he manifests his will regarding the next 4 years? Who is going to carry his will? Because at the end of the day, no matter what no matter who is going to do what, or who is going to be in the Oval Office, at the end of the day, none of them functions outside of the dominion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. None of them functions outside of the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I was intrigued more than anything to see how is Allah ta'ala, who is going to carry that will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it happens to be Donald Trump, and there are clear reasons why he was as Imam Walid mentioned, it was favorite to begin with. The lackadaisical and completely discombobulated campaign that Kamala Harris had, and the Democratic Party had butchered so many opportunities to state clear positions against or for issues that are on the minds of the American people, especially in swing states where people are hurt economically, may not be hurt economically the same way they were 4 years ago, but there were a lot of people are hurt economically. There are a lot of politics regarding social issues, at the core of which is what Imam Walid mentioned, the gender issues. They could not still, the Democrat, have problems defining what a woman is. So if that is the case, then but the elephant in the room is that I think that alhamdulillah, the Muslim community get to a point right now, whether we like it or not, Allah Ta'ala, the Qadr put us in this situation where we can be kingmakers. And I feel that if we unite as Muslims, and if we this is a great opportunity. I feel that even though Trump did not want to meet with Muslims, he did not want to meet with Muslims. I saw a video who is like standing up in there extremely uncomfortable, but he actually came in to seek the Muslim vote, because he knew that in Michigan or in Wisconsin or in Ohio or in Georgia, 100,000 Muslims can tilt for sure. Pennsylvania can tilt 100,000, more or less, can actually tilt those states towards him if he and he made statements that. And so, do I agree with the giving our allegiance to Trump? Absolutely not. But at the end of the day, we see that Allah Ta'ala put us in a situation where we can actually exert some power and some strength. Surprised? No. But I was extremely intrigued, and I feel that Muslims more than any time before felt that they have something to prove. They have something to say. They have something against the Democratic Party, who looked down at us in ways that is shameful. And it's time for us that anybody who looks down at us, that we can punish them. And I feel that Muslims voted as a punishment to the Democratic, whether going to the third party or to Trump. They voted whether to the third party or Trump, they voted to punish the Democratic Party. So at the end of it, this is an event with all of what's going on in Gaza, with all of what's going on in the world. This is an event that is part of a larger picture, and it has to be put in its place and not to be given more than what it is. And world leaders come and go, but the trial is for us to stand up for that which is right and to read the qadr in a very beautiful way. And this is a qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we have to deal with, that we have to read and make sense and have a perspective regarding it.
Thank you, Sheikh Hassan. Beautifully stated, and I definitely appreciated, I think, what was a pun and intended, right? That was an intended pun, the elephant in the room, absolutely. So, Jazakallah khair, Sheikh Hassan. So, for Imam Dawud, let's kind of talk about that elephant in the room. I was surprised, when I heard that there were Muslims, the Muslims in Michigan that were actually endorsing Donald Trump, especially from the Yemeni community. I think we might have actually seen where everybody got on stage and they were kind of pumping their fists and saying that Donald Trump would bring peace and so on. And he was there for families. And that was interesting to see that. And then, noting those returns, Imam Dawood, I really thought that the Green Party would perform better. I voted for the Greens. I know anecdotally a lot of people that I was talking to were saying they were going to vote um, for Doctors Jill Stein and Butch Ware. I was excited about their candidacy. I didn't expect them to win, of course, but I was hoping when I saw those returns that I would see a higher percentage going for the Greens. So my next question, and this is for Imam Dawood, is ultimately, what do you think was the impact of the third party voters on this election?
Well, I think the third party was a big impact, especially coming from the Muslim community. But before going there, I want to go back to the first thing that you mentioned, Ustad Zainab, in regards to Dearborn and Dearborn Heights. I think it's important for us to get a little clarity beyond what pundits say, because like I'm right here on the ground. I'm a member of the Imams Committee, and I know some of the reasons why people voted for Mr. Trump that maybe people outside of Michigan don't know. So number one is that a couple of years ago, in the midterm elections, many people in Dearborn and Dearborn Heights, especially amongst the Lebanese community, but even the Yemeni community, said they weren't going to vote for Democrats no matter what. And it's because the community went through a public flogging and shaming by the Democratic Party after parents went to the school board and raised concern about two books in particular. One book called This Book is Gay, and the other one called The Flamer, that was introduced into the public schools for minors to check out and to be able to read. And actually, that made nationwide news. And then how some of the people in Congress, our governor, the state attorney general basically flogged the community and called our community homophobes. People were like, we need to protect our children. And the Democratic Party's social um, values and what they're trying to engineer amongst our youth and the children is simply too much. So this was kind of like the straw that broke the proverbial camel's back for many people in our community. That's what many people don't know outside of Michigan. The Yemeni situation is specific, and I don't agree with the logic of some of the leaders. And of course, the Yemeni community is not monolithic. Keep in mind when uh, when the former Speaker of the House, Tip O'Neill, said all politics is local. Well, there's local impact on how people vote, but there's an overseas relationship. So, as we know, there are different uh, political allegiances from people in Yemen, from north and south. There are three different foreign entities in Yemen that are exerting influence in Yemen, and there are people who are influenced by those same forces right here in the state of Michigan. So when there was the last meeting with Trump, and by the way, I was invited to meet with Trump, I declined. I didn't want to be used as a photo op,
Well,
and I wasn't going to mention anything about. No matter what I say about Gaza, I know where he's at, right? But some of our imams went, and one of the people that was there was Yemeni. Now this is not what was said publicly. This was behind closed doors. Uh, he said, "Look, we don't like Ansar Allah, meaning the Houthiyyin, the Houthis. We want the Houthis removed. When you come into president, when you come into the office, Mr. Trump, will you get rid of the Houthis?" So Trump's like, sure, sure, sure. I'll get rid of the Houthis. I'm good friends with Mohammed bin Salman. I'll get rid of the Houthis. So um, part of the reason why those people supported Trump, it had nothing to do with Gaza. It had nothing to do with textbooks or things like that or the border. It has to do with their interests of the political party they're affiliated with in Yemen, and they want the group Ansar Allah removed from Sana'a, right? That's the reality. So different communities and different people have different interests, and those overseas interests sometimes will dictate why people endorse certain candidates, right? Um, Going back to the Green Party, why I think that there wasn't more of a vote for the Green Party. Um, there's a saying that both of you have heard and the audience has heard that the first casualty of war is the truth. And there was a lot of misinformation that was put out about Dr. Jill Stein. The last one I heard is that she was going to parties with Epstein. You know, that was put out. There were legal challenges by the Democratic Party, you know, to try to keep her off of ballots. There was fake information that was put out. And then unfortunately, there were some Muslims who were affiliated and getting paid by super PACs, uh, affiliate with the Democratic Party, who were working in communities to undermine the Steinware campaign. And I'm not saying this out of theory. This is a reality, and you. This is why, and I came up with a saying a couple of years ago: "Who funds you runs you," and we do have political operatives in the Muslim community that are funded, or their organizations are funded by money outside of our community, either 100% or the vast majority, and some of that political engineering of Muslims who are acolytes of the Democratic Party, they were mobilized and activated against third party candidates, including Dr. Stein.
Thank you, Imam Dawud and Sheikh Hassan. Imam Dawud, by the way, I want you to feel free to respond to each other, to add, to interject. Again, I want this to be, a free-flowing conversation. So, Imam Dawud, there are several things you mentioned. First of all, thank you for filling us in on what actually happened in Michigan. I really appreciate that nuance, and to understand that members of the Yemeni community had geopolitical considerations they were bringing to bear on their endorsement of Trump. There's something actually, I actually had wanted to ask Shah Hassan about this regarding sort of the role of geopolitics. Shah Hassan, if you have any kind of opinions concerning that, or also what Imam Dawood said about the kind of the role of these these political action committees, these super PACs. I mean, because in reality, we had groups that we thought, were sort of going to bring a certain level, I guess, of kind of principle to the discussion surrounding the Democrats. I'm talking about basically the kind of uncommitted group, and then I'm seeing, and Imam Dawood is saying that this is something that's not just a theory. This is something that happened. We have a group that apparently received hundreds of thousands of dollars to basically kind of contain or kind of restrict their endorsement to Harris and to undermine third-party candidates. So I know those are two questions I've asked now, Sheikh Hassan, but from what Imam Dawood said, again, I'm kind of curious to kind of know what is your opinion kind of concerning geopolitics here, or if you have any views concerning Muslims accepting money from some of these groups that are kind of lobbying them in a certain direction.
Yeah, Jazakallah khair. I would really, I wanted to hear Imam Walid say more, and I wanted to, if I have to give him my time, please, I really wanted to hear more. These are things that we'll never get in a state where the election is already figured out. They already decided. There is no discussion. There is no impact of the Muslim no whatsoever in here, or no impact of the minorities in here. Probably in the next decade or so. Hopefully, inshallah, bi'idhnillah. But those details, they show our real self as a community in the mirror, and we see ourselves what we are. We all understand that voting a single issue is extremely problematic. We've seen this with the Protestant community. We've seen this with the evangelical community, who are in the bandwagon of Trump in ways just like because of the one issue of the abortion and so on. I would have hoped that the Muslims have a little bit of insight, because we have learned that the one issue politics will never get us never get us to our potential. It will never get us to negotiate on a strong position. It will never get us to that which we want. And when it becomes this pity that we have to look at what's going on in Yemen, and that becomes the single important point for me, and I become the voice for Muslims, that Muslims actually wants Trump, that is a betrayal to the trust, that is betrayal to the position, that is betrayal to the, and unfortunately we cannot afford, unfortunately we're not going to control those voices who claim that they can speak on behalf of Muslims. In fact, we cannot control that. There are always going to be people who are going to create from among us and fund from among us, people that they put as our leaders because of their organizations or because of their positions, and that's something we have to be very careful of. At the end of the day, yes, it is important for certain issues for the ummah that are outside of the borders of the outside of the soil of America are important. But they're not important because of my attachment to Morocco or my attachment to Yemen. They're important because of their value to the whole ummah of the Prophet ﷺ. It is, they're valuable and they're important and they're crucial because of what they represent to our Islam, to our Iman, to our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They transcend those issues, Gaza or Palestine or Lebanon right now. These are not things that are ethnical for us. There are not things that are just, no, these are things that transcends colors, that transcends race, that transcends borders, that transcends. So these are matters of principle. And when we choose to engage in matters like this, in matters of principle, we make a difference, and our choices will be different. And we won't sit down with Trump in that manner. That is so vulgar. That is so cheap, right? There is a moment where we, and I take this opportunity in here to applaud and to make dua for Imam Walid. May Allah Ta'ala reward you and preserve you. You have elevated the dignity of your position, not to meet with a person like that without any, there is a moment where we have to meet with these people. There is a moment where but on what ground? On what ground are we going to meet with these people? What is it that we're going to say? What is it that we're going to? So that is something that regarding the geopolitical thing. The other position is difficult, because at the end of the day, we know that the Muslim community is extremely important in the politics of today. And we know that people are working hard to really create from among us people who are going to present their own views. And we know that there are Muslims are going to be bots. We know also that we're going to be, their organization are going to be put forward on TV, they're going to be sponsored, they're going to be on TV, they're going to be in the media, they're going to be on social media, and they're going to appear bigger than what they are. And they're going to really sway the Muslim views on things, even though they don't represent who we are. And we have to be vigilant. The institution that represent who we are, we have to unite around them. And the grassroots work is the most important. Is this where we have to show and shine, right? We have to show up and shine is in the grassroots work, to educate Muslims and to not allow them to be praised to people like that. It is sad what happened to the third party. And I'm going to say one word about it, and I leave it to Sayyidina and Imam Dawud, where the Prophet ﷺ said a beautiful hadith regarding the impact of, regarding looking at the results. A lot of times we want results and we say, oh, they failed, or they failed. The reality is, we put the effort and the results are from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rawal Imam Bukhari, that the Prophet ﷺ said, at the day of judgment, a prophet will come and he has only one man or two men following him. يأتي النبي ومعه الرجل والرجلان والنفر والنفران. So all the saga, sending prophets and sending revelation, and the prophet will live for 20 years, struggling. How many people follow him? Two, probably one. Some of them one, some of them two. So do we consider that the endeavor of the Prophet, all of this 20 years or 30 years or 40 years is in naught? Absolutely not. We believe that it's a failure? Absolutely not. Right? So the result in here, we do our effort and the results from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we know now that we know about the dirtiness of politics, but now we know even more how dirty these people can go. And now we have to prepare for it. And al-mu'min is not a fool, and we're not going to be bitten from the same hole twice, inshallah bi'idhnillah. And we have to pay attention to these types of politics, especially in the places where the one vote of Muslim can make a difference. Wallahu a'lam.
Thank you, Sheikh Hassan. I really appreciate that. And again, this is why we're convening tonight's conversation, because we want to take the long view of this, dear brothers and dear sisters. We want to understand this from the perspective of Tawheed, that sovereignty solely belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So definitely let's not be disappointed in that we didn't get the outcome we were hoping necessarily for the third party candidates. I want to say to our audience members, this is a webinar format, so you will not be able to use your camera or microphone. However, we do have a Q&A section where you can submit questions to our panelists, because we are planning to have Q&A inshallah towards the end of our program. But I still do have a few questions for our guests. So to the issue of the third party specifically, this is a question that really I think is for both of our scholars, but we'll go to Imam Dawud. Imam Dawud, you and I have spoken offline about this. What is your perspective on making takfir on Muslims who voted for the Democrats? I would love to hear about that.
MashaAllah. Yes, we've talked about this, and I've talked about this with other people as well. Unfortunately, our community has been gripped by a trend in the dominant culture. And this is what we would call the cancel culture. So it's not necessarily a takfir per se of saying someone is a kafir or kafira, though there are some people who bordered on that, but more so a type of socio-political takfir, that really a person is not in good standing, or they're like dal from the issue, from the perspective of politics. This is bad, and the way I view it, it is really the methodology of El Khawarij, that deviant group that rebelled against Sayyidina Ali Radhiyallahu, and one of the people, Ibn Muljam, actually martyred him in the month of Ramadan in Kufa. So it's something that has no place. I said this, like, I was on two letters, and I believe you were on one, if not both of them, Ustad Zainab, encouraging people to vote for third party. But I always said, and I said it in the community, that as it relates to the generality of the Muslim community, no one's pleased with genocide. I believe this. I have husnul dhan for all of the Muslims. No one's pleased with genocide. When people cast their votes, they think that what they're doing is the best way of mitigating harm to Muslims here and abroad. So if someone voted for Kamala Harris, or if someone voted for Trump, or if someone voted third party, or if someone was like, you know what, all these options are so bad, so I'm just going to vote for my local politicians and skip president. I said, I believe in general that all of these people, they had a righteous intention, right? And at the end of the day, much of politics is speculative. Like who we vote for, most it's not a qati issue, right? We're involved in some speculation about what we think is best. It depends on, our methodology and our knowledge. Now, in saying that, I remember I say this story often. One of my teachers, Sheikh Salim, rahmatullah alayh, I remember vividly, I was in my 20s, and he looked at me in my eyes, and we were going over the hadith in the Ma'mal Biniyat, that actions about by their intentions. And he looked me in my eyes and said, remember, he said, Dawud, he said, you can be sincere and be sincerely wrong. It's like feelings are not enough. This is why we need ilm, we need usul, we need a methodology, and we need knowledge. And hikmah, or wisdom, is applying that ilm at its proper place and proper time, right? In the right way. So, but I remember that vividly. So I do think that maybe some people were not dealing with a full view about why they voted for, uh, the party of the Himar or the party of the field. But nonetheless, I don't believe in any cancel culture. And for those people who are involved in that, my suggestion is to repent to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. And if you insulted someone in a WhatsApp group, because most of the time these things aren't in person, sometimes they are, but sometimes these WhatsApp groups are extremely toxic, or anti-social media like Facebook and Twitter. I suggest strongly that you go and apologize to your brother or your sister, of calling them ignorant or saying they're a deviant, or if you voted. I even saw some stuff where people said if you vote for Kamala Harris, that you're going to be caught up on the day of judgment and thrown in the fire. Like, to that extent, I saw stuff like that, and that's, or the Prophet alayhi salam is not going to intercede on your behalf, like just bizarre, ridiculous things. I suggest to repent to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala and apologize to your brother or your sister. Inshallah, they pardon you for that bad opinion and for the bad adab. And may Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala make us guide us to have a good opinion of Him and have a good opinion of the believing men and believing women here and abroad.
I mean, thank you, Imam Dawud. I really appreciate that perspective. And yes, for our audience members, the term that I used was takfir, which is the idea of putting a Muslim outside of the pale of Islam, declaring that person to be an unbeliever. In this case, because of their political stance. And I know this was not one that I sent ahead of time, so I apologize, but Shah Hassan, I want you to, inshallah, I want to invite you to comment on what Imam Dawud said. Is this a manifestation of kind of a kind of like Kharijite approach? And Shah Hassan, what would you say to someone that would argue that a Muslim who cast their ballot for Harris or Trump is going to find themselves in the company of Fir'aun? And I asked that question actually for a personal reason, Shah Hassan, because I, like many Muslims in this country, unfortunately voted for Biden in 2020, never dreaming that he would be a monster. So I want to ask this question in terms of how this actually affects our standing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or as Imam Dawud said, the intercession with the Prophet, peace be upon him, if we voted for these people.
Yeah, I mean, Imam Dawud said it really beautifully. And the beauty of this gathering like this and events like this is that it gives us an opportunity to collectively look at our tradition, to find guidance and to find light at a time where people are completely looking for light, or looking for answers. To debrief this event from the lens of our tradition is a necessary event, is a necessary occurrence that had to happen to all of us. Any Muslim who's involved in America had to find himself in an event like this to really make sense of things, to really allow the tradition to open up, to really give us light at a time where there is no light from anywhere. So to answer your question, Ustad Zainab, we're all traumatized with what's going on in Gaza, what's going on in Lebanon. We all have our emotions are extremely high and for a very long time. The amount of images, the amount of suffering that we are seeing on a daily basis that we cannot move out from is tremendous. And I understand that Muslims have their emotions, all over the place. And in time of trauma like this, people react outside of their rational thinking. And people will rationalize so much of their desires and so much of their passions and so much of their anger will rationalize it. So we have in our tradition there is tremendous amount of guidance when time like this happened. So Sayyidina Ali rahmatullahi, Sayyidina Ali alayhi salam wa radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, somebody told him the Khawarij are kafirs. And somebody told him that Muawiyah and his clan are kafirs. He said, no, they're not kafirs. So for the Khawarij, he said, they're not kafirs. No. Min al-kufri farru. They run away from kufr. And he said about Muawiyah and his clan, he says, إخواننا بغوا علينا. These are our brothers who transgressed against us. So instead of looking at things from a theological standpoint all the time, that I wanted to highlight to my brothers and my sisters that the lens of theology is black and white. It's not nuanced. It's black and white. The lens of the halal and haram is black and white. It is black and white. So we got to move a little bit from there, because these are politics. What do you say to people who voted for Bush, thinking that there is no way we can vote for Al Gore in 2000? There is no way. The guy has Lieberman with him, and he has, and so on and so forth, without going back to that. I remember those days, right? And what? How did we? And he came, and how did we end up? How was Bush? And we're all euphoric about Obama, and how was it? The one who killed more Muslims than so many with the drones and all of that. How was it for us that we were so excited about Obama, and so on? The idea in here is that these are political issues. These are matters of ijtihad. These are matters of, they're not matters of right and wrong, or halal or haram, or kufr and iman. These are not matters of that. These are matters of correct and incorrect. These are matters of correct and incorrect, and it's relative too. It is relative. These are matters of, this is a correct opinion or incorrect opinion that doesn't make you out of the deen, doesn't make you out of the millah, doesn't make you an enemy to your brother. We can still, you can still stand up to pray together, and we can still help each other in so many other things, thinking that you have an opinion that you're probably wrong about. And we don't love each other for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, knowing that we agree with each other on every single level. But conflicts bring the worst of us. And that says something about us, that where we have to be as a community. Where we have to, can we tolerate opinions that go against our opinions? Can we allow in the community a little bit of room for that, right? If they are argued well, and if there is consideration of morality, if there is consideration of the boundaries of Islam, can we have that, right? Absolutely. Most of the khilaf between the Sahaba was political, and I don't recall any one of them calling each other kafirs, even though some of the issues were clear. Some of the issues were extremely clear. Looking from the heights of history, they look clear to us. So the idea, my dear brothers and my sisters, is that we are all traumatized. This is the time we debrief. This is the time we think about what came out of our verse and ask Allah Ta'ala's forgiveness. What Imam Dawud said is beautiful, to come back to Allah Ta'ala. And if we hurt somebody by what we're saying, let us apologize and let's move on. And let's learn. We're here to learn what is it that we need to do collectively and individually to make sure that we don't fracture our unity because we are too excited about excited about somebody that may not be the way we think, and we fracture our community, we fracture our unity. So there is tremendous amount of insight and light in our tradition if we heed to it, and if we allow the tradition to guide us properly. Allah Alam.
If I can add on for one moment, Zainab, and beautiful comments by Sheikh Hassan. Just to, as he was talking, it made me think of something that Imam Muhammad ibn Idris al-Shafi'i, he said that if this one particular hadith, it was 1/3 of knowledge, and that is la yu'minu ahadukum hatta yuhibbu li akhihi ma yuhibbu li nafsihi min al-khair, that this relates to the empathy that we should have for our brothers and sisters in Islam, that none of you believes until he loves for his brother or sister what he loves for himself, that's from khair, that's from goodness, right? And in these particular times when things are very emotional, as Dr. Hassan said, Hafizullah Ta'ala, if we in our muhasabah, in our daily inventory, if we just sit back and reflect it, like how we are approaching our brothers and our sisters, be it in person or on these phones or whatever it is, right? That how would we want to be treated? You know, if we hold a certain view and someone jumps to a conclusion, wouldn't we want them to like ask us, well, why are you doing this? Or I understand your position, but however, I see it a different way. Like, wouldn't we want that for ourselves? And so, if we want that for ourselves, then we should be able to extend that same grace to our brothers and sisters in Islam. And I think that this is uh, it relates to elections, but this is a principle that goes beyond the political issues. This relates to our adab or our etiquettes on things that we disagree with in general, as a community.
Jazakumullah khaira, Imam Dawud, Shah Hassan. I really appreciate that. Some Q&A have come in, so what I'm going to do, inshallah, I will turn to the Q&A, and then I will, once we have addressed those questions, I will ask each of our esteemed panelists to conclude with some nasiha for our audience. Now, I believe this question really was answered by the dialogue that we just had, and this is from an anonymous attendee who asked, how do you balance between public accountability and giving grace, especially for Muslims, enabling the very injustice we try to fight? I believe that was addressed quite beautifully by our speakers, but if you want to answer that one more directly, you're more than welcome to. Again, the question is balancing between public accountability and giving grace when we feel that there are Muslims actually enabling certain injustices. So if you wanted to comment further, that is one question that we have. Inshallah, there is, yes, inshallah. So I will move on to the next one because I really do think we answered that, but I just wanted to make you aware of it. Um, there is another, this is really more of a comment from Brother Rakan, and I think this was answered as well, but I'm going to go ahead and summarize this. He says, Assalamu alaikum. Shaykh, I guess this is addressed probably to both Shaykh Hassan and Imam Dawood. And Brother Rakan is making the point that wouldn't you say that the people who decided to vote Republican or Democrat, that they had some valid points? And this is what Brother Rakan says, that those who voted Democrat basically said we can't have Trump come back because he's influenced by Zionism and he's got an Islamophobic past. Meanwhile, those who voted Republican, Brother Rakan is saying, say that we have to punish the Zionist Democrats and vote in Trump. Brother Rakan is also saying that those who voted third party, that he felt, and himself included, that felt that maybe this was going to end up being a throwaway vote. They didn't get close to that 5% threshold. So the question that he finally asks, wouldn't the point of not voting Green Party for that reason be valid? I mean, I think that you really kind of addressed that, this idea of political differences, being respectful of those differences, obviously, to a point. Maybe we can talk about that point, and the idea of ijtihad. But that was Brother Rakan's question, which was really kind of part comment and part question. So I wanted to mention that had come in as well. Again, the idea of seeing the validity in the other's point of view.
Yeah, I'd like to make a little further comment on that. I would just say that, like this matter as in all matters, that our primary objective is not dunyawi as seeking a worldly result, but we are seeking to please our loving, cherishing Creator, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, right? And if that is the intention, then it's never a throwaway for a person to vote their conscience. The outcome, that's not what's most important, or a worldly outcome in regards to polls. If one is struggling and striving and believing that, and sometimes there is no lesser of two evils in the duopoly, and that voting, exercising one's conscience by voting third party, I don't see that as a throwaway at all. In regards to the arguments about Democrat or Republican, just keep in mind, everyone, both of them, both parties, their congresspeople and senators, they're all in the pockets of Wall Street, Big Pharma, and the military industrial complex, right? There is no real difference between blue and red, and especially when it comes to the issue of Israel. Our beloved um, American Muslim civil rights hero and martyr, El-Hajj Malik Shabazz, Malcolm X, rahimahullah ta'ala, who Dr. Umar Farooq Abdullah, hafizullah ta'ala, said is like our Imam Hussein in America. Um, he made the analogy about, he said that the conservatives are like wolves and the liberals are like foxes. He says, but if you have sheep, then sometimes like the liberal is more likely to get the lamb chop, right? But both of them in reality want to eat your sheep. The wolf wants to eat your sheep, and so does the fox, right? So sometimes we tend to be more on guard about wolves, where in fact we get used and abused by the liberal foxes, because they're a little nicer and they'll say Ramadan Mubarak and invite us to Beit al-Abyad for some hummus, with the Israeli ambassador sitting in the front row, and we really feel, honored. But in reality, there is no big difference between the wolf or fox, especially when it comes to our brothers and sisters in Gaza. And Allah knows best.
Well said, Imam Dawud. Jazakallah khair. I really appreciate that. We have two more questions. So this one I'll summarize because to our anonymous attendee who asked, I don't want to necessarily ask our speakers who are both running nonprofit organizations to make pronouncements regarding any particular sort of nominee. But someone has asked what our speakers think the impact on American Muslims will be if Trump nominates apparently Matt Gaetz, okay, as Attorney General, all right, or Huckabee as ambassador to Israel. So I'm going to broaden that question. I'm going to ask our panelists, do you think that objectively we as Muslimin are going to be worse off under Trump? And do you think that the issue of Palestine will be worse off under Trump? I think I'll ask it that way. I know that's a tough one because, again, we can't predict the future, but that is one of the questions that I'd like to ask just because we were threatened by the Democrats, right? Basically, almost sort of blackmailed with this kind of specter of a Trump presidency to vote for them or else.
Imam, if you allow me to say a few words and then I'll give it to you because I really wanted to hear what you say about this. I think before I answer this, there is I think something intrigued me about the first question that you have, like when do we give grace and when we do actually criticize. It's a very important question in here. It's a moral issue, and when do we get to allow personal feelings to go or compliments to people and wanted to be in good standing with people, to stand in the way of elevating a principle. The principle comes first. The concept, if we attack the wrong in the concept, we don't attack people. We attack the concept and the wrong in the concept of people and so, but not the people themselves. That's one thing. The second thing is that we have to have delineation of what's right and what's wrong. We have to have delineation of things that we see are clearly against the benefit of Muslims, and they're clearly people who are clearly expressed their animosity. They may not have expressed it in a way that is pronounced like the Republican, but they pronounce it clearly that they have nothing to do with us and we represent nothing to them. The Democrat humiliated us in ways you cannot even. They didn't allow one person to stand to say a few words, 2 minutes in their convention at the midst of a genocide. They never wanted to call it genocide. The Speaker of the White House every single day legitimizes on a daily basis that he ever, with all of what's going on, and so anybody who comes and say, we want to vote for this because they are good for us, I want to see how is that good for us. How is that good for us in any way? Now, we make sure that we we make sure that we stand up to that which is right. And if it upsets some people, it upsets some people. That's how it's going to be. But at the end of the day, I'm not taking that personal. I'm not going to take it personal, attack people on their faith. I'm not attacking them on their. So I consider them wrong. And Imam Shafi'i used to say, رأيي صواب يحتمل الخطأ ورأي غيري خطأ يحتمل الصواب. Like my opinion is correct, but it's a possibility that I might be wrong. And the opinion of my opponents, he's talking here about the other madahib, are wrong, but it might be right. So if there is a collective consensus, a collective consensus, we have to stand up to that, and we make sure that collectively we stand up for that which is right. Now, where do we, again, what do we do with Trump? My dear brothers and my dear sisters, I mean, the only people who are going to ask this question are the people who live comfortably. I can guarantee you that an African American in the east side of Knoxville, or a poor, destitute person somewhere, or somebody who's the system is against from the get-go, is never going to ask this question, no whatsoever. Why? Because he knows that the system is against him from the get-go. Right? We have never been put in a situation that we are very uncomfortable. It came to us with Trump. He just brought it to the fourth. But let's think about what happened in his 4 years. The Muslim communities flourished in ways you cannot imagine with all the bad rhetorics. And let's face it, our organization collected more money than any time in the history of America at the time of Trump. Muslim community fundraised against him. There's tremendous amount of unity. There's tremendous amount of restlessness that is necessary to bring the community forth. And there is discomfort that allow us to be better. So we don't welcome the trials, and we don't say, oh, Allah, bring us trials. But whatever Trump brings in, we're well equipped by our tradition, by our faith, by our political understanding that, well, yeah, sure, we don't want to be tried, and we don't want to be put in a position where we are the punching bag for somebody. At the same time, it's not all bad, and no matter how bad it gets for us, it's never going to get bad to the point where it's the civil rights movement again. We haven't paid a price for our freedoms. We haven't paid anything. So the moment we are going to be a little bit vexed here, then that's it. We cry wolves. That shows that we are mushy as a community. That shows that we don't understand the sunan of ibtila. Part of our faith is discomfort. Part of our faith is trial. Part of our faith, it's, we don't ask for it. We ask Allah Ta'ala soundness and afiyah. But you know what? When Sidna Rasulullah talked to Musaylim al-Kadhdhab. There is a hadith when Prophet talked to Musaylim al-Kadhdhab, and Musaylim told him, this is what comes to me, and this is so on and so forth. And the Prophet ﷺ told him the following statement. He said, اخسأ عدو الله فلن تعدو قدرك. It's like, be cursed you, enemy of Allah. You will not go beyond that which has been decreed upon you. And we say the same thing to Mr. Trump and whoever he puts as, they're never going to go beyond that which Allah Ta'ala decreed upon them, right? And if it's trial, it is trial. And we'll go with all the means, whatever it's necessary to defend ourselves and to stand up as we stand up as a crucial component of the American fabric, right? And we have so many allies. And let me look at my brothers and my sisters in the eye and say, the seat of resistance is a beautiful seat, and then nothing to fear if we are the carriers of the banner of resistance in America. It's about time.
Thank you, Sheikh Hassan. Jazakallah khair. That was a much needed reminder. And I personally feel encouraged, and I feel fortified. I'm actually not despairing at all of a Trump presidency, and I pray everybody else feels that way. So we have now drawn close to the end of our program. In fact, what I'm going to do, inshallah, at this point, and just quickly for the audience, the ayah that Sheikh Hassan reminded us of is chapter 29 Al-Ankabut. This is verse 2. Do people think once they say we believe that they will be left without being put to the test? Sadaqallahu al-Azim. So, Imam Dawud, we have one final question, and inshallah, the question is really kind of how to navigate our political circumstances in order to achieve communal goals. And I would like to invite you to maybe share some practical advice or some tips for the audience in terms of where do we sort of go now? What are next steps? We have these goals, but we also have the re-election of someone who is more openly fascist. So any advice for the audience?
Then Zainab, can I sneak in a question in there?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, and that was the last question that we had.
Imam Dawud, Allah yajzi kul khair. I don't think for the majority of the people in America, I don't think we can speak from the vantage point of your experience in Michigan. I don't think we were previewed to the details of what's going on in there. And so my sincere request in here is that on a personal level and on a communal level, what are some of the crucial lessons you've learned from this that we as a Muslim community in America ought to pay attention to for the next, not just for the next phase, but as building prophetic communities around, what is the things in here as a Muslim community, politically and otherwise, on socially, what are the lessons we take from here?
Okay, so what I've witnessed over recent years and this election, and as we're coming to the Trump presidency soon, and my thoughts about it are our biggest issue as a community had nothing to do with politics.
Absolutely.
Nothing to do with politics. We should have social political awareness, but really it's our hearts that are divided and why we can't come together, that we do what we can do. Keep in mind that even though the Zionist community is much larger than us, and when I say Zionist, I don't mean Jewish, because the majority of Zionists in America are actually evangelical Christian Zionists, right? Like Mike Huckabee, who was just named to be the ambassador, um, to Israel, is one of those Christian Zionists. Um, for us, it's never an issue about numbers, right? It's about our hearts being united, and for us, there has to be number one, I believe, more work on our individual selves of trying to really work on ilmu suluk and to rid our hearts from the spiritual diseases that cause the rancor amongst ourselves, like arrogance, like envy, self-wonder. A byproduct of it is al-jahl murakab, compound ignorance, right? And then also in this ignorance, ridding ourselves of it, is that this Quranic concept of ta'aruf, right? Many times in our community, the reason why we can't get together politically is because we're in our own silos. We have suburban silos of Muslims, inner city silos. We have ethnic silos, right? Even when it comes to Dearborn, and by the way, Dearborn is majority Ithna Ashari, it's majority 12 or Shia, and the majority of those are from Lebanon and Iraq. But even the Lebanese and Iraqi Shia don't even get along because of Qawmiya, right? They have their own like racism and nationalism, right? So the much less Zaydis and Shafis and all, because those are basically, the three groups in Dearborn are and the Salafis. You have the Ithna Asharis, the Shafis, the Zaydis, and the Salafis, right? People can't get together because of their own Qawmiya and Ta'ifiyya, right? So if we could try our best to stop only focusing on the outward and balance that with the outward and the inward and our individual practice and our individual concern, and to actually do this ta'aruf, to have a practical plan of breaking outside of our silos, and actually to go and have regular communication and sit with other Muslims, to sit and break bread with them, not for any political discussions, just to learn about each other's histories and get to know each other on a human level. Then when these catastrophes come, we're not trying to call for unity in the middle of a Nakba, or the middle of a genocide. The hearts will already be softened and somewhat united, and then we can better work together for some sort of uh, unity agenda on politics. But right now, even in southeastern Michigan, as many Muslims that we have here, there were too many divisions even here, right? So that's my take on how we go forward. And Dr. Sherman Abdul Hakim Jackson, in conclusion of this point, I remember him saying years ago, he said that heart work is the hard work, right? The political organizing and knocking on doors and making phone calls is actually easier. The harder work is the heart work.
Jazakallah khair, Imam Dawud. We are very fortunate to have your wisdom and your insights tonight. And absolutely, it really is about transcending these petty, ethnocentric, and sectarian divides. That really is going to be the work ahead of us as a Muslim ummah here in the United States. So with that, we, alhamdulillah, have concluded our program for tonight. Shah Hassan, would you like to have the final word?
I think what Imam Dawud had said is beautiful, and I just leave it. I don't wanna ruin the taste of that in the mouth of people. So may Allah Ta'ala reward you. May Allah Ta'ala accept from you.
Ameen. Ameen. So for our audience members, this webinar is being recorded so that you can benefit from the recording and share it with your family and friends, inshallah. You're also going to see where we have placed a couple links in the chat. So to learn more about Imam Dawud's work, please go to dawoodwalid.com. And to learn more about Shah Hassan and Taysir Seminary, please visit taysirseminary.org. As Imam Dawud mentioned, we have a number of programs, our academic programs, Arabic in Istanbul, also our wilderness expeditions, and Umrah coming up soon, inshallah. So I want to thank our audience members and for your thoughtful questions and comments. And I want to thank our esteemed panelists, Imam Dawud Walid and Shah Hassan Lachheb, for taking of your precious time. And we know your time is valuable, and spending that time with all of us this evening. And inshallah, with that, I will conclude with a dua. I ask, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant our community, our leaders, our teachers, our scholars, our du'at, our activists, and all of our community members. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us wisdom and guidance and clarity. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant all of us patience and perseverance, courage, resilience, and the ability to make the best of our circumstances, whoever is in the White House. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us beautiful following of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless and protect our youth, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to cherish our elders and to build on their sacrifices. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us beautiful intentions, righteous and accepted action, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give all of us the best of endings, which is the ending upon La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be with the oppressed. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be with the mustad'afin. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be with all of the Muslims who are suffering in so many parts of the Muslim ummah. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to witness the liberation of Palestine and all of the lands under occupation. May Allah ta'ala allow us to witness the liberation of those lands soon. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow all of us to be true to the example of Malcolm X and our martyrs here in the United States. May Allah ta'ala have mercy on them. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه الحمد لله رب العالمين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. And thank you, everybody.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
جزاك الله خير. السلام عليكم.